Hey everybody, welcome back to James Draws Everything. Today continuing our Drawing Every Country in the World's Flag series, and we're going back into Central Asia to a former Soviet Socialist Republic, and we're going into Kazakhstan. And I know a lot of people, especially if you're kind of closer to my age, you only know about Kazakhstan from that stupid movie that came out in the early 2000s, Borat. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the country itself, Kazakhstan, and it does have kind of a complicated flag, a really long one, and sort of a complicated history too. So just as I'm kind of laying out what I want to do here, I'll brush you up on the history of Kazakhstan. Right, so Kazakhstan is kind of like a mix of Turkic people and nomadic tribes, a little bit of a Mongol kind of influence, sort of around like the 15th century. So, right, being, kind of pretty close there to Russia and Mongolia. They have had a little bit of issues with like being invaded by their neighbors, but the Kazakh tribes again were nomadic, so there really never was like an official like a Kazakh state, right? Because again, they're nomadic tribes, so they never really settled down in that particular area to form like a government or anything like that. So Kazakhstan also, it's the ninth largest country in the world, right? Not very populated though. A lot of Kazakhstan is like deserts and uninhabitable terrain. Kind of like Mongolia too, right? We already did a Mongolia video, so check that out when you get the chance. Kazakhstan, pretty similar. A lot of natural resources though in Kazakhstan. They do have a lot of oil there and other like rare earth minerals. So in the modern age, that makes Kazakhstan, kind of attractive to like foreign influence. And it does have quite an intricate design on the flag, at least on like this little ribbon that's on the side. So I'm just gonna kind of draw that for a minute here. It's got a couple crosses. Yeah, so Kazakhstan, a lot of Mongolian influence, like when the Mongols are sort of expanding their empire into the rest of the world. Kazakhstan is kind of at the foot of the Mongol Empire. They're close to China as well, and then also the Russian Empire. So the ethnic, like sort of Kazakh people are subject to like a lot of foreign influence and government. So the Russians actually arrive in Kazakhstan in like the 18th and the 19th century, the Kazakh steppe. So the Russians are sort of looking to expand their influence in the world at that point in time. And the Kazakh steppe, not only is it on a lot of trade routes, but again, it has those natural resources. And in the industrial age, oil is becoming a big thing. So the Russians are making moves on a lot of the world's like oil bases. And then when the Russian Empire collapses in the early 20th century, right, 1917 to be exact, they absorb Kazakhstan into a Soviet Socialist Republic. So Kazakhstan becomes the Kazakhstan Soviet SSR, which they remain for the duration of the Soviet Union. All right, so this flag's got some some yellow in it here in this ribbon, so a little bit of a tricky kind of design. So let me just erase some of those pencil guidelines I put in there. Just kind of color these in. All right. And Kazakhstan as well, kind of like Ukraine, sort of becomes one of the early casualties of Soviet collectivization, like as far as the farms. You're probably familiar with the Ukrainian Holodomor. So that's when the Russians basically did a targeted starvation genocide on the Ukrainian people. You didn't hear about that too much in the 20th century. A lot of that was because it had a lot of communist sympathizers in the United States government and in the United States media, namely guys like Walter Duranty, saying how great the Soviet Union was in the lead up to World War II. A little bit of a historical revisionism has come out on that, so we know about the horrors that were done to the Ukrainian people by the Soviets nowadays, but we don't really hear as much about the famine in Kazakhstan. And the famine in Kazakhstan was pretty much just as deadly. I think 1 million people died in the latter half of the 1930s, right? So Kazakhstan, just a lot like a lot of the other Soviet republics that were taken over in that early 1920s, 30s period. The Soviets banned, ethnic identity. So if you were quote unquote undesirable, they'd lock you up, throw you in a gulag, or just basically starve you to death. So that happened to the Ukrainians and the Kazakhs. Right, so whatever your thoughts are on Ukraine nowadays, you can kind of understand why they hold a grudge against the Russian people, even though, as I like to point out on this channel, the Russians and the Soviets is kind of two different things there, but that's a topic for another day. So yeah, Kazakhstan is greatly weakened, massacred pretty much by the Soviets, getting rid of those national elements of the country. Even though Kazakhstan was never really a nation to begin with, they certainly did have an ethnic identity as far as the steppe people, right, in that part of the world, right on the steppes. Kind of the link between Europe and Asia. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of detail this sun here a little bit. Before I bust out my fatter markers here. And then, yeah, as I'm doing that, the people of Kazakhstan, kind of a little further along during the Soviet years here, they were subjected to what was called a Virgin Lands program. Right, so communists always have problems with this, right? They massacre all of the people that were productive, right? Especially in agriculture, right? For whatever region they were subjugating, and then they're kind of baffled as to why there's no food after that, right? You see this in South Africa and in like Zimbabwe, right? The same note played kind of over and over again. Same old song and dance. Doesn't matter what the race is or the ethnicity or the religion or whatnot. It's just those same policies. You get the exact same results every single time. So the Virgin Lands program starts encouraging like a lot of Russians, some Chinese, but mostly Russians, to emigrate to Kazakhstan, right? And I want to say, the Russians too. It's, I'm not just talking about Soviet, right? Because we're still in the Soviet period here, so I got to kind of be careful with how I choose my words. But I mean like Russian ethnicity, right? So we're still in the Soviet era, but there are ethnic Russians that Soviets encouraged to move to Kazakhstan to try to cultivate those lands and make those farms work again. To limited success, right? So a lot of times with agriculture, those that were like ancestrally part of the land kind of tend to know it a little bit more than people that move in. Not always, right? Like in the case of Africa, it's a little bit different, but yeah, not hugely successful. The Virgin Lands programs in Kazakhstan, but this is later Soviet era. Like we're talking about like the 1960s. So communism is already kind of showing that it's kind of face by that point, right? It's the terrors of like the 20s and 30s are kind of long gone by now, and this euphoric dream of like a classless society and egalitarianism is kind of bunk by that point. So they're kind of just running on inertia. But yeah, that's communism. And Kazakhstan too. Kazakhstan again is huge. I forgot if I said this or not, but yeah, it is the 9th largest country in the world. And not a lot of a central population there, right? Because it's so sparse and deserted. A lot of deserts, a lot of uninhabitable terrain. That's why there was never really like a Kazakh state to begin with. It was mostly just nomadic tribes. So the Soviets actually they set up a lot of their space programs in Kazakhstan, and a lot of that infrastructure is actually still there to this day. So it's kind of a cool little tidbit about Kazakhstan and the space race, right? Probably a little bit more important in the space race than history gives it credit for. And again, that infrastructure is still there. A lot of Soviet infrastructure is still in Kazakhstan, especially with like the oil fields. So Kazakhstan, it achieves independence when the Soviet Union collapses, like around 1991. It is the largest economy in Central Asia, right? I know that's not really saying much because there's not a lot of economic productivity in there. But yeah, they're bigger than like some of their Stan brothers in that region. And a lot of that has to do with, again, being a very oil-rich economy. And Kazakhstan, again, because it was never really a state to begin with, right? The Soviets just kind of set up like an artificial sort of a Kazakhstan socialist republic. When the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of these Central Asian countries, they had a little bit more growing pains than, say, like the Baltics, right? Like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they already had a strong ethnic identity, strong national identity going back centuries before the Soviets arrived. Not as much with Kazakhstan, so they actually kind of wanted Soviet influence to remain in some ways, because they were so weak as a functioning state. So yeah, their economy a little bit better than the others, but still kind of struggles. They're trying pretty hard to get foreign influence into the area, as far as opening it up to trade and stuff like that, and infrastructure projects, with the oil and all of that. So we'll see what happens there. A lot of Chinese influence in Kazakhstan, just kind of being so close to China. There's a lot of Chinese emigration, for labor, into Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan does have a problem that a lot of countries have right now, as far as their fertility and birth rates decreasing over the years. About 2/3 of the population are ethnically Kazakh, but you still have a lot of Russians, Chinese, Uzbeks that are there. And yeah, there's sort of again a problem with trying to keep an ethnic Kazakhstan, but also kind of really needing that labor to do the work and the infrastructure in the country. So again, not really historically a country, but they're trying to get there and just experiencing some growing pains on the way. But yeah, we wish the best of luck to Kazakhstan, and we'll see what they do to kind of solve their issues going forward. There was a recent attempt at what I believe was a color revolution in Kazakhstan, trying to pop off a war, kind of like what happened with Ukraine. Something happened in Kazakhstan, right? Right at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. But I think the Russians kind of put a stop to that. And then Ukraine happened, and everybody kind of just forgot about Kazakhstan. But we'll see. There's all sorts of attempts to get things going on bordering Russian countries. That could be a hot spot going forward. Central Asia, the Caucasus too. Obviously, with some of the foreign influence in that area. But we'll see what happens there. That's a story for another day. What does the flag mean of Kazakhstan? So this little kind of nice looking ribbon thing here, this is the ornamental karkar maize. It's I guess it represents a ram, and the blue in the flag is for the ethnically Turkic people that are there, the Islamic faith, cultural unity, and sky. The sun represents life and abundance. And the eagle, right? It's kind of a different looking eagle, right? Usually they put the whole burb on the flag, but this is an outline, sort of a silhouette of the burb. And that is a symbol of Kazakh tribes for centuries. I guess going back to ancient times, the Kazakh tribes always had the eagle burb as their symbol. And it also represents freedom, power, and the future. So future burb. I like it. So burb flag, I'm gonna like that. Yeah, it's pretty intricate. Some of these Central Asian flags have pretty complicated designs. I'm still fearing having to do Turkmenistan. I'm trying to work up the courage to do that one, but eventually, we got to do it. We got to hit them all. Most complicated flag in the world. Kazakhstan, pretty complicated, but not the most complicated. And let me know what you think about it. All right, so like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video.